So, for about the last 10 years or so, I've always wanted to visit the UK. When I was a teenager, I became obsessed with, British TV shows like Doctor Who, Sherlock, and just so many more. Also games like Assassin's Creed Syndicate, Valhalla, and just a growing interest in history more and more as I got older. Like, how cool is it to live in a place with so much history where you can see ancient Roman ruins, follow the path of Jack the Ripper, and see a memorial from the Battle of Britain? So when the timing and the prices were looking pretty good, I decided to pull the trigger and finally go to London.
To the faraway towns, now war is declared and battle come down. London calling to the underworld, come out of the cupboard, you boys and girls. London calling, now don't look to us, phony Beatlemania has bitten the dust. London calling, see we ain't got no swing.
So this trip I may have overplanned. I had something on the itinerary for every single day, except for the day I arrived. While I was very jet-lagged and tired, I took a walk down to see the Elizabeth Tower, aka Big Ben, because I think that's almost a requirement to see if it's the first time you visit London. But my first real day in London was two things. First was the Warner Brothers studio tour. This is one of those things that I couldn't believe I would see. Like most people my age, I grew up absolutely loving Harry Potter, and I never thought in a million years I'd be going to this studio where they were actually filmed. And it was insane. Very much reminded me of Universal Studios, but knowing most of these props were actually used in the movies just filled me with so much joy. And I went all out with this one. I paid for the VIP treatment with the guide that went more into detail on the behind the scenes of the films, and it was really cool. Not sure if it was like the $300+ I spent cool, but it was an awesome experience. But be warned, if you don't like crowds, this place was absolutely packed.
With the exception of the Weasleys.
After the studio tour, my second tour of the day began. I struggled finding the right train that would take me back into the main part of London, and when I did, I was worried that I would be late for my second tour, which was the Jack the Ripper tour. Another thing that I couldn't believe I was going to do. When I was around 18, I had this weird obsession with Jack the Ripper, and I watched every documentary, every movie that I could find, and I even read a handful of books, and I was just so interested. So actually taking this tour that I've probably watched on YouTube, a bunch of times and read about, it was pretty crazy to think that I was actually going to be there. But even though I was really worried about getting there late, I actually got there pretty early with the help of the Uber that was pretty expensive. And while I was waiting, this gentleman approached me and asked me if I was waiting for the tour, which, I responded, yes. And then he said, well, if you want to kill some time, pun intended, then you can take a look around my souvenir shop. I love a good pun, so I checked it out, but this guy was just trying to sell me everything that he could, and he was just really grating and overbearing about it. But, I purchased a little booklet just, so I didn't feel bad, but yeah, that guy was something. When the actual tour started, I was shocked to see so many people on the tour, and not just the tour that I was on. There must have been at least 20 or more other Jack the Ripper tours going on at the same time. We were all just crisscrossing each other, but the tour itself was great. The guide was amazing, and he had this encyclopedic knowledge of serial killers. He would ask people on the tour where they were from, and then he would tell them about a serial killer from there. It was very impressive. But that would be my last night in London, for now at least, as the next day I was taking a train to Carlisle to begin what would be my most ambitious kind of trip yet, attempting to hike Hadrian's Wall. Now, quick, poorly done, probably inaccurate history of Hadrian's Wall. It was commissioned by Emperor Hadrian to keep out the barbarians, stretching about 73 miles from Balmis-on-Solway to Wallsend in Newcastle. It was a very impressive monument just to see this thing, and to think that the Roman Empire stretched this far and that I could walk where the Romans walked is just crazy to me. Now, full honesty, I did not do the entire trail. I had to train to Edinburgh in a few days, so to save some time, I decided to start in Carlisle. So I woke up at around 5 a.m. and started my long trek across England following the path of Hadrian's Wall. Alright, today I'm starting the Hadrian's Wall hike. This is my current setup. But yeah, should be on my way in the next hour.
I'm leaving home for the coastline, someplace under the sun. I feel my heart for the first time, 'cause now I'm moving on, yeah, I'm moving.
I was absolutely loving the hike. It felt amazing to be out there and not really have a care in the world and just take in this beautiful scenery.
Where I can free my mind, I hear the sounds of the season and lose all sense of time. I'm moving far away to a sunny place where it's just you and me. Feels like we're in a dream, you know what I...
But after a few hours, the weight of my bags, and remember I carried everything with me that I brought, 2 bags, it did start to weigh on me. But typically when the pain would start to get pretty bad in my shoulder, I'd stop, take a 10-minute rest or so, and then I would normally be good to go for another couple of hours. And this section was pretty lonely. I only saw 2 other hikers going the other way. But, thankfully I had pretty great weather, even though I really wanted to break out my expensive rain jacket that I bought. It never rained out while I was on the trail. So that was, I don't want to say disappointing, but it was cool. Good weather.
Paint the sky. I'm moving far away to a sunny place where it's just you and me. Feels like we're in a dream, you know what I mean.
I just slipped and ate shit right here. Not feeling too great. My back actually hurts, but it hurt before I fell, so. Worst places to fall. I'll get back up in a second. Oh my god. That fucking hurt.
Away to a sunny place where it's just you and me. Feels like we're in a dream.
But after covering almost 20 miles in a day, I finally made it to my hotel for the night with very badly blistered feet. I stayed at this place called Hadrian's Holiday Lodges, And this place was wonderful, it felt really cozy, and the gentleman that I spoke with was really kind. But I was dead tired, and I fell asleep with all my clothes on and everything as soon as I laid down on the bed. And I ended up waking up at around 4 a.m., took a shower, got dressed for another day of hiking, had my very first English breakfast, which was delicious, but I'm not so sure about the black pudding. Day 2 definitely had some of the most just beautiful kind of vistas and scenery, and I started to run into a lot more hikers because I think this is where a lot of people come to do day hikes, and you can really see why. Day 2 was quite a bit shorter than day 1. I covered about half the distance, but a lot of it was up and down, up and down, up and down. But, eventually made it to my hotel and had way too much food at the restaurant that was there, and once again passed out almost immediately after laying down in bed. Also, if you ever do this hike, twice brewed in, amazing. The staff and the food were so good, and the hotel room was really nice and clean, something that I can definitely not say for a majority of the hotels I stayed at. But day 3 was a lot like day 2, many uphills and downhills, and I even crossed the famous Robin Hood tree, but, please don't hate me, but I've never actually seen the Kevin Costner Robin Hood movie. Towards the end of the day, my fatigue was setting in pretty badly, and I started to think that I may have been too ambitious with trying to walk across most of England in a few days.
I've been on this stretch for a while. I cannot wait for it to be over. It's just nothing but this, and then it dips down into a bunch of mud, which is awful. This one's not too bad. Looks like they got some stones, but oh man. I started way over there today. I shouldn't have too much further. Oh, fuck. So hopefully the day will be over soon.
And when I was getting close to my hotel for the night, my feet were in excruciating pain. Every step felt like it was a needle being stabbed into my foot. But I eventually made it and had this delicious plate of fish and chips that was so good. But the hotel itself was pretty bad. Room was dirty, the bathroom was absolutely filthy, and you could hear everyone walking down the hall as if there wasn't even a wall. But thankfully I was so tired that I fell asleep pretty quickly, but still, very annoying. So I set off on what was supposed to be the last day, but my feet were still in pretty rough shape. And I made it a couple of miles before I had to be honest with myself. I still had almost 10 days left on this trip, and I didn't want to mess my feet up any further. So I ended up calling a cab and taking a train to Newcastle. Yeah, I do consider myself a failure for not completing the entire trail to Wall's End. But, I'm pretty damn proud of myself for how far I did actually make it. If I ever go back, I'm going to make sure that I'm more prepared and will tackle that trail again and do the entire hike. I think if I wasn't lugging around absolutely everything with me, it would have been much more manageable. Now, Newcastle was fantastic. The city was stunning, and I explored the castle and just tried to take it all in and enjoy the moment and not dwell on the fact that I failed my mission to hike the entirety of Hadrian's Wall. But one funny thing did happen. I was waiting to cross the street, and when this nice man in a car stopped and waved me to cross, I trusted this man, and I started heading across, and as soon as I started going across, another car came zooming down the opposite direction and almost hits me. Technically, it was my fault. I should have still looked both ways, but I trusted the man in the car, but I kind of figured, no big deal. We're all fine, nothing happened, and I will probably never see any of those people ever again. Fast forward about 30 minutes, and I'm standing in line to check into my hotel for the night, and I hear a man yell, "You need to check both sides of the road before you cross." And I was so embarrassed turns out the guy in the car was the hotel manager, and we had a pretty good laugh about it. It was still pretty embarrassing though, but I went up to my room to rest and get ready for the next day when I would make my way to Edinburgh. So Edinburgh, and I apologize if I'm saying it wrong, might just be my favorite city that I've ever been to. I mean, just look at this place. Now, my first day, and kind of my only real day in Edinburgh, I went to the castle. But the first time, I walked all the way up there, and I had my backpack and my other bag with me, and I couldn't get in because of my bags. So I went all the way back down the hill to my hotel, and I asked if I could check in early, and thankfully they let me check in. Then I headed back to Edinburgh Castle, and it's definitely worth visiting for the views alone, but the history of the castle was also really interesting, and they have several different museums in there, and it's great. Definitely a must-visit place, but judging by all the people that were there, it already, is pretty well known as a must-visit place.